Cup of Joe with Grampa Dez. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
What's happening? You got fancy music and everything. I love it.
Hey, I that's me live singing too, if you didn't know. Um, I saw you take a sip there before we started, and I always ask what you're drinking. I just got coffee in this mug here.
Yeah, tonight it's just water with some with a little bit of seltzer in it.
Okay,
That's my mix. That's my mix.
cool.
Yeah, it's what 9 o'clock here. So yeah, to kind of wind down for now. I try not to drink during the week, or at least I'm starting to not do that during the week. Save that for the weekends, But
Wow.
usually my other choices when I record a podcast earlier today was coffee, which I should probably take that out of the room and all that.
I don't drink like at all at home. And really at all. But coffee, I'm just nonstop. And if I don't drink
Yeah.
coffee, I fall asleep. It works the exact opposite on me. It's kind of like Ritalin, like where if a normal person takes Ritalin, they're all like the Speedy Gonzalez, whereas with people that need it, it calms them down. So it's the same way with coffee with me. So it's nice to actually see your face. We've been doing podcasts together for what, 5-6 years now. I've been on your show.
I'd say when did we start? Yeah, I felt probably 5 years or so. We'll call it.
I think maybe more. I think maybe 2015, 2016, maybe.
Boy, that is like 5-6 years ago, isn't it? Jesus,
time
flies.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. Time.
And I've never actually seen your face. I mean, I've seen the picture. Like you have your profile pic, and I always wondered. There's actually one point where I even wondered if it was actually you. Because sometimes people don't actually have but it's clearly you. I mean, that it looks like your face. Yeah, little less hair, but
is.
Yeah.
On purpose. On purpose.
Yeah. Well, that's what I figured. Actually, on the one, I think you might be bald, like shaved bald, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what most of the time I just have to. I got to get the clippers out. It's been a week, Paul. Been a couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
A crazy couple weeks. Yeah. So I got all good stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
I went. Yeah. So I went to Florida.
Right. Yeah. For your friend's memoriam.
Yeah. So we did that, and that was great. It was good to see some friends. All of us. One person couldn't make it last second because he came down with the Rona.
Okay.
And then, but all the rest of us were able to make it. One guy had to leave early because all of a sudden there was some family issues at home and things like that. But the rest of us stayed. And we are now 10 days past when I got back, and knock on wood, no Rona issues, which is unbelievable to me. I thought we're, going into this, I was kind of figuring, okay, we're going to come back and someone's going to have something, whatever, but nobody came down with it. But however, I came back and my daughter had it.
Oh, wow.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So she got it while you were gone?
She got it. So she tested positive. Lucky me. She tested positive. So she started having symptoms on the Saturday. I was coming back on Sunday. So that on Saturday, she started having symptoms. My wife checked her with a rapid test the next day, and she had it. And so she was out she's going to be out of preschool for the whole week, regardless. And her school is going to be 10 days. And then they shut the school down because there was a bunch of different COVID tests, positive tests and all that. So she was home all last week. And then her school's closed again this week, like I was telling you before.
Yeah.
And so we're all making it through. That's good. It's could be a lot worse.
But she's like fine. You said symptoms, but other like pretty okay, just like a cold.
Yeah, I know everyone says flu, right? But she was it was kind of like, I would say the worst cold that she's ever had. But it was up there the first night, but then after like 36 hours, she was fine, and knock on wood, she was vaxxed and all that, which is good.
Oh, good. And, good. I wasn't sure if she was able to be. We actually, like, I think I've told this on here before, so I won't go into the whole thing, but my Emily, she's 9, and she had a heavy fever a couple weeks ago, and just kind of looking back and putting all the dots together, she probably had it. But we didn't, we didn't get her tested. We didn't have, we had a rapid test, like we had the rapid test at the time already, but we kind of told ourselves, well, if she still has a fever in the morning, we'll test her. And then she didn't. So, we just sent her off to school, to daycare. But then someone at daycare got it, and then she ended up having to stay home for 10 days anyways. But now I'm wondering if maybe she didn't give it to them. I hope that's not what happened, but you never know. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's also, sorry to interrupt you. What's also crazy is, talk about like, taking care of someone that might have it, is like my wife had hasn't got it, no symptoms, no
Yeah.
issues, and neither have I.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's weird. Like,
It is, yeah. And I'm sure
and
you're not wearing a mask around your daughter, so
no, so
yeah.
I thought about it. I was like, come back. I'm like, do I have to
Yeah.
wear one around her? I'm like, idiot. I just came back from Key West. It'd be kind of
Yeah.
irresponsible of me also be like, at home, I'm going to put one on. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we kind of, I
And
remember
I mean,
back.
if you put a mask on, you're doing it to protect her. So she's already
Right.
got it. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Right.
And you're
So it
fully
was,
vaxxed, I assume, boosted.
yeah.
Yeah.
All good there. My
Yeah.
wife is too. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things that we're working through, and
Yeah.
like everyone else is around the world, and hopefully be relatively.
You work from home. You work from home mostly anyways, right?
I do. Yeah. In this
Yeah.
very location right here. Yeah.
Same with me. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm actually off work this week, but I mean, it doesn't even feel any different because, I lined up some podcasts. For anybody watching, by the way, because this will air on Thursday. I didn't wear the same clothes for 3 days. I'm recording this the same day I recorded my last show with Preet. So, yeah, I should have changed shirts in between, but like they do on the, on TV, but I'm still learning this game. So actually, now that I kind of get a little, just a touch inside baseball on that, I kind of wanted to talk to you about that, because I mean I've said this probably about 6 times on the show, but there's certain people that if they weren't around, I might not be doing this. And you're one of them, because I mean, you kind of were the first one to give me like a microphone, and I think the first time we did this, I was probably using an iPhone, or I don't even remember exactly what I was doing, but and over the years, I've got a mic, here, and Bluetooth and whatever, and a mic, a camera. Like, God, good Lord. If you told me 18 months ago I'd be doing a video show, I'd be like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
But,
you get the bug, and all of a sudden it takes over. Yeah, it's I get the most enjoyment out of when I hear, and this is way when I was writing too, and do more MMA stuff, and kind of helping people along the way. If I was able to, that gives me the most joy, is when other people like, oh, I was able to get this because of something you said, or not to put myself over, but I mean, it's kind of like when it's like, it's just that it gives me a good feeling, because like, I kind of know what my role is in this spot and what I want to accomplish, and what I have. And if along the way, if I'm able to help anyone out with advice or something like that, or an opportunity, and they are able to feel confident, get from here to here to here, then that's the best reward I can get, is other people's success. Because I think that comes from being confident where I am. And a long time ago I wasn't. It was kind of like trying to be like, oh, I could be this, I could be this, I could be this. I just need the right opportunity, and it just life happens the way it does, and things could be a lot worse. And honestly, things are pretty good all the way around, so I can't complain.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I, probably the first, few times I did your show, I mean, I think at that time, even I had it in the back of my head, like, oh, I'd like to do a podcast someday. And then, and you make it seem so easy, and Brian as well, that, oh yeah, anybody could do this. And then, when I first started doing it with Ryan, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't quite as easy as these guys make it look. And especially if you want to do it good, have good sound, have good content, and so when I first got started, I was like, okay, I want to, right away, like within a month, I was like, I was in Tony's ear. I'm like, okay, I want to do a show on your network or whatever, right? And he's like, no, we got enough MMA now. We got Josh. So and even that's probably too much for Tony. Like he doesn't really like the MMA. And but like it got me going, and it kept me motivated. And then, but as I got doing it, now I'm to the point now where like I'm totally happy with what I'm doing. And if someone came knocking on my door and said, hey, we'd like you to do this here, I'd look at it, and I might do it, I might not, like I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing now. And especially when you have the freedom, like a show like this is totally not my baby. Like, if I want to do it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. It sounds like that's probably similar to what you have with Punch Out. Like, you used to do a fairly regular schedule. Now you just kind of do them when, you feel motivated, and when you have the right guests.
You got to be happy, and kind of to your point, what you're alluding to is you got to be happy and content with what you're doing. And it's got to mean something to you, because otherwise, if you're doing it and you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, it's probably not going to be good because it's not going to be your passion. It's not going to be, people are going to kind of notice that because the time that I started compared to now, I mean, the amount of podcasts just went, up and to the right. I mean, there's just everyone has one on every single subject, and it's good because there's no barrier, but it's harder to get found. It's harder to stand out. And in like the pro wrestling space, which has expanded so much, I knew that I didn't want to, I started really doing in a really hardcore MMA focused one, then kind of started, flipping some pro wrestling stuff and we'll kind of go back and forth and may do a few more interviews coming up this year. But I didn't want to do like, no offense to anybody else that does this, but I didn't want to do, let's recap NXT and Dynamite and Raw and SmackDown. I just, cause there's 1,000 other ones that do that. And so I was like, okay, what things are interesting to me? I kind of started with there and like, all right, I'm interested in these specific areas of business and what itch is not being scratched for me. What things do I gravitate to? What am I interested in? And that's when I did, kind of when you like the MMA year in review series. So many people for years, it's always just the next thing. And they do these year in reviews, but they're very condensed or they're very award focused, right? The MMA fighter of the year, knockout of the year, things like this.
Yeah, we don't do that.
But to me, right. And so to me, I wanted to do something that was more, look at all these different things that happen. How do we get to point A, B, or point, X, Y, Z? Because it was all of ABC that started back in January. You saw the machinations, all the lies, all the things that we were told, all the fights that almost happened, all the things that were discussed because we forget so many things. And then that kind of led into, for 2+ years, I thought, okay, how do I do a best of, or not best of, a year review for pro wrestling? And then I think, like I'd mentioned on the show, I kind of looked into what with our shows that we do 3 months per episode. Generally, they're about an hour, 15 minutes, give or take, right? And that kind of has everything without rushing through everything. But with pro wrestling, I did one run through, like read through for January. And I'm like, this is like 3 pages on a Google Doc. And I'm like, there's zero chance I'm going to get through 3 months at an hour 15. So I'm like, well, if you're going to go for it, you're going to go for it. And so I said, okay, it's going to be 1 month per episode. And we're going to try to find 12 different guests. And I did 11 different guests. I could have got 12, but I wanted, date-wise, I wanted to get it in. So I repeated 1, which was fine. And I just kind of did it that way. But those type of things I found with either interviews, things I'm like looking at, planning on doing, that type of stuff. It's things that I'm not finding other places that I wanted to do just to kind of be a little bit different. And, I think that succeeded in that way. But ultimately it's up to people that listen. And look, I'm never going to have as big audience as Wrestling Observer Radio or something like that. And that, that's fine. That's a lot different. But, if the people listen to me, if they're happy with it, if along the way they learn some new stuff or they kind of ask some questions that I think need to be asked, then that's all I can really ask for.
Yeah, I got to listen to your wrestling series. I've shouldn't say long. I've stopped listening to the stuff I'm on just because I just did it. I don't need to hear it again. I used to do it just because I kind of wanted to listen and and maybe I should, because you learn stuff when you listen to yourself, but I'm doing so much stuff right now. I just don't have time to listen to it all. But, because I'm trying to listen to other stuff too. But I really did like your pro wrestling series. I listened to 11 of the 12 shows. I didn't listen to every single one. There was one I didn't listen to, and there's a specific reason why, and I won't get into it. But I listened to the other 11. You can use your own imagination. But I like the idea. And when you started with, I think Ethan was the first one, I was like, oh, wow, this can be interesting if you have Ethan on for every single one. And then, you had, a different guest. And then it was like, oh, okay, this is what he's doing. All right, cool. Because I don't know either. I don't know if you mentioned at the top that you were going to be doing it with different people or if if that just became obvious as you kept going. But I did like that. And you gave a lot of different people that I'd never heard before a microphone, and obviously from what you were saying earlier, that's another reason probably in the back of your mind why you were doing this,
it's important to me that to give some different voices and people that you meet, and one of them Jesse, who did 2 of the episodes with me, Jesse Collins, who did some work with Wrestling Inc. and also Voice of Wrestling. He and I honestly, he had emailed me, I think a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, wondering about column opportunities or something along those lines. I can't remember. but I never met him before, didn't follow him on Twitter. It was just kind of just one of those things where it's like, we get hit up all the time with, I want to write for your site, and I don't have any experience or whatever. And he had a little bit at the time. And then I went to the AEW show in Boston. That was just this past October 2021. And he and I happened to be sitting each other next to the media seating. And we just started talking. He's like, hey, I emailed you, blah, blah, blah. And of course, sounds like, I emailed you about writing. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I get back? That type of thing, kind of worry. And we just talked, and I found I really kind of was interested in what he was talking about, what he was saying. And we just talked basically throughout the whole show. And I was just kind of like, huh. So we kept in touch, and I thought his episodes were really good. I liked, some of the points he brought. They were well thought out. And, some of the other people on there were people I'd had on before. Some other people like Andrew Thompson for Post I'd wanted to talk to for a while.
I really like that one. I really like that
one.
Yeah.
And he, it's funny. I go into these saying, it'll be about an hour, and like most of them are. And then he and I just kind of kept going. It wasn't a thing like I was even wanting to like wrap it up or anything like that. It was a case of we just kind of kept talking, but then he would ask me some questions. We'd kind of get into it. But that's, to me, like, why I like kind of doing what I do, is that there is that conversation back and forth. I think that's the most important thing about podcasts, or else they turn out to be like radio shows, where you can tell a difference between a podcast and a show, a morning show that you hear on any city in the country, because the conversation's not natural. It feels forced, or stuff you see on TV or what have you. So that's kind of thing I've always wanted to do. And sometimes when I feel myself going down that path of like, it feels like forced conversation, that I have to kind of like, in my mind, redirect it. Do I have to ask a different question? What do I do? With also kind of keeping things on track. But yeah, it was important to get and it's also a chance for me, to talk to people I haven't maybe ever talked to before, that I've wanted to talk to, maybe for a future job opportunity for that person. Maybe it's something maybe looking down the road, or just, professional connections or things like that, where, it's just, you just kind of ask and you take your shot and you go from there.
It's funny, like almost everything you're saying about your show is kind of what I had in the back of my head about this show. In terms of, I wanted to do something, because I think it was Garrett, Garrett Gonzalez. He's a really smart guy. And he kind of, we were, spitballing ideas back and forth on different things for Fight Game Media. And I had kind of pitched my idea for this show, but I don't think I really had it quite fleshed out exactly what I wanted to do. And he was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And, you can look at it and whatever. And then I'm just like, you know what? I think I might just do this on my own. And, in that way, I can kind of play with it. And as I started doing it, it was really on the first episode when it hit me. It was like, okay, this is what this show is going to be. And before I started it, like, I had the channel set up. I had paid for the recording, everything. Like, I had it all set up without even knowing what I was going to do. And then the first show I did with Mike Gilbert, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does
is he Impact?
For Impact?
Yeah.
Yes. So we had just this amazing conversation that had nothing to do with wrestling. And it was, right then it was like, okay, I could do this. I can have a conversation with all these different people. Some of them are my friends. Some of them are people I know, and in some cases it's, or people I work with. Actually, even in my back of my head, I even had, like, even in my day job, I might bring on some people, and I still might do that. But I just, for what I've so far been doing, it just hasn't worked out. But just have these conversations, these free flowing, organic conversations.
Yeah.
I've had a few times where, like, it was funny. My aunt, she's an author. So I wanted her, she was on my short list, and I had her on real early. And then she started watching my show, and she's like, oh, I got this friend of mine who's a director, and I want you to get him on your show. And I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, well, that's not really what the show's about, but okay, whatever, I'll do it. And then he sent me a screener for his movie, and I had to, like, watch his movie before we did the interview, which would just, like, it just kind of was very intimidating. But I watched the movie. I really liked the movie, and I had him on the show, and we had a great talk, and it felt like I knew the guy. Like, he was really personable. His background was like me, except way more cluttered than mine. This is by design. Everything that's there is there for a reason. But my wife says it's too messy. But it's not as messy as it looks, like, in the picture. Like, I actually have a lot more room than it looks like I have. But anyways, we did that.
I have the most boring background, by the way. I have one of my coworkers for a marketing thing. that we did. It's like a soundboard here, but I have like UFC posters and wrestling stuff. I need to get like framed and actually make like a background, like
Except
all
you
these
don't do a
people.
video show, so you don't really need
Not
to.
yet.
Oh, not
Who
yet.
knows?
Oh.
Who knows?
Hey, you know what?
Who
Hey,
knows?
hit me up if you want to do something.
That's right. You never know.
I actually have in the room right next to me. That's where I have all my USC stuff, but I don't want to take it down and move it here because the angle wouldn't work. Like everything you see in the shot, like there's stuff above it. It's like as I'm going, I'm going to play with this more, and I just keep adding stuff. The Blues Brothers I put in there when I got Cole Cabana on because he's from Chicago. I got those Mick Foley books because I did a show about, we did matches we hate debate on Fight Game Media on the weekend. So it was Undertaker and Hell in the Cell. One of the guys on the show just hates that match, and the other three of us loved it. So we had a conversation about why, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, nice. So yeah, I wanted to do a show where, you know, you get to talk to people, and maybe the people watching, they would get to see a different side of that person, literally see, you know, a different side of that person and hear. I've actually got the audio podcast version slowly getting put up now. So I'll take like 2 or 3 of these and put them together and do a 1-hour podcast. So
I didn't know if it was like the slow, I'm picturing like back in the day with like Microsoft, like the slow like transfer thing. You know what I mean?
No. Well, that's in my head. That's what's happening. But
you're like episode 3 is fine, is slowly you're kind of going over. You know what I mean?
No, it's so quick though. Like actually, like when somebody told me, "Oh, you could put this on podcasts," and they kind of explained it to me, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really intimidating." And when I actually did it, it's so simple. Like took me like 5 minutes.
Yeah, scare you. You know?
Yeah. So, So other than that, what else did I want to talk to you about? Okay, so you know, we were talking about how long we've been doing this, and when you were talking about your daughter Ashley, that's your daughter, right? Or is that your wife?
That's my wife. Daughter's Rachel.
Rachel. Okay, so we were doing a show when like you didn't even have a kid yet, so that's how long we've been doing it. Because I remember one year you had already had your kid, and then the year before, I think she was pregnant, and my daughter was pregnant with the grandson. And I don't even think that was the first time we did a show. So I think it was the year before that was
so it would have been
that's how long we've been doing it.
Yeah, so it would have been 2015.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember writing an article and we plugged it on the show. And it was basically I was predicting that UFC was about to have a boom. And this was before Conor took off. But it was Conor and Ronda were basically going to be like the catalyst of that boom, because they had that down period where you know, John Jones was out, Anderson Silva was suspended, and they had that 1 year, I think it was 2014, where they were like really down. And then at the end of 2014, when they just had one of their worst years ever for pay-per-views, I'm writing an article said the future is going to be huge. And you can find it in the archives if you want to search. And I was prophetic. Huge. Yeah. We did our show all through Trump, and you know,
that's right. Yeah. Pandemic. Yeah.
No, and now we're out on the other side. Yeah. The pandemic. Good Lord. I guess when we would have been doing the show 2 years ago, I wonder, I'd have to go back and listen if we had any sense of what was just about to happen, because COVID had just hit.
I don't think we did. No, because it was I remember when we did the 2020 year in review shows. That was weird, because I remember going through them like how, like some of these months, like it's all the machinations of trying to get back, especially during those like episode 2 and 3 in that series, because that was the Tachi Palace debacle and everything after that. And I remember distinctly, I think it was episode 1, because this would have been January, February, March, because March was the show in Brazil. That was the last show that they had. It was that empty arena show. It is it's so weird to think back like that, that week stretch, week 2 or week stretch from, well, I think sports fans really remember as like the Rudy Gobert game.
Yeah.
Right. When the Utah Jets,
was it March 18th?
Yeah, it was, because they AEW was in Salt Lake City. I believe that was the last live Dynamite that they did. And and then everything, I remember it was like Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson got COVID that night.
Same day.
Like, and then the Jazz game got canceled. All of a sudden the NBA was done. And then UFC was still going to forge ahead and do the show in Brazil. And I remember MLW did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, and MLW did a show in a really under the radar show with the Crash in Tijuana. Because I remember I messaged Tom about it, Filthy Tom,
Oh.
and I'm like, are you guys still doing this? And he's like, I guess, yeah. He's like, I'm on the way, and I thought it was so weird that they were, because literally everything is shutting down around. And MLW is just like, screw it, we're still going to do this show. I'm like, it's such a good idea. Like, it wasn't even an empty arena, but obviously books will be kind of written about. I mean, there are plenty of books already written about everything, but how
I just Googled it was March 11th, 2020.
March 11th. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So because I do remember remember Dave went to Japan and he came back and him and Jim Valley were like deathly ill. Like they were on the radio and they couldn't get through a show without like coughing up a lung and everything. And people were making the joke, like, does he have this, Chinese flu, as they were calling it at the time. Right. Like we didn't know. And I mean, I was fully convinced that he probably had it. I mean, and he was insistent.
Dave always has those. You remember Dave always has those random coughing fits. It seems like once every 18 months or so.
Yeah.
For like weeks and weeks between that and the beeping smoke detector, his laptop or his computer restarted. He's
the barking dog.
The stopwatch.
Yeah. The dog.
The dog. Yeah. The dog too. It's just it's just a zoo over
part of his charm. But yeah, like but I think like we might have been recording maybe the last one, because we usually do the last one in January already. So we may have, but obviously we had no idea how big it was going to be, but we'd have heard about it. Because I remember hearing about that thing like really early. Like it was between Christmas and New Year's. I remember somebody sent me a video and it was talking about this, plague in China. And how if they don't get it under control, it's going to be a worldwide, like thing. But I'm thinking at the time it's going to be like SARS, like it's going to be here and gone, like
I don't remember. So that was the last time I had been to Key West. Not to sound like I'm bragging. It was our last trip with our friend that had passed away, and we decided he wanted to go to Key West, so we went to Key West. That was January. It was like the first or second week of January 2020. I don't remember being worried and concerned in the least bit, because I don't remember hearing anything about it. And then, everything, went crazy, obviously, 2 months later. So it's, weird how time works and all that stuff.
I went to Vegas the third week of January that year. And then in the second week of February, we drove to Dallas from Winnipeg, the whole family. We went for like 3 days and drove back. So we made it a week. And when we were there in February, like that's when we were starting to hear like the first cases and everything. And, but even then it was like, okay, no big deal. Then in March, we had to go for a medical appointment. We go every year, twice a year. It's always March and September, to Minneapolis, to the Shriners Hospital. So it would have been around March 9th. And then we got back March 10th and then March 11th, that's when everything hit the fan. And then by the 13th, they were like saying, like, if you've been outside the country in the last 72 hours, you need to quarantine. You need to like not leave your house, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, it's like, there was one case in the whole state of Minnesota. It's like, we got to quarantine because we didn't. And, and whatever, like it was, we were fine. But within a week after that, they were closing the schools, and like, it was just, it all happened so fast. But believe it or not, in our office, we never had a mask. We had to wear a mask to go in and out, but in the office, we didn't have to wear a mask until about a month ago. Like it was only, I guess, when Omicron hit, that's when they finally made us start wearing masks. But like we could sit at our desks without wearing a mask. But I mean, there's hardly anybody there. Like our office probably has a capacity of, 60 people on the floor that I work on. And on any given day, you might have 10 there, because most everyone's working at home. Like I go in once a week to do printing, and that's basically it. Like, just because I don't have a printer at home, so whatever printing I need, I save it for Mondays and I go in Mondays. But so we're right up, running up on our 30 minutes, and I feel like we just got started, so we'll have to do this again sometime.
Do you have a set time limit?
Not really. I mean, I tell people 30 minutes, so I try to keep it to that.
Well, unless you have to run, I get a few minutes.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, if you want to keep going, we can keep going. I got to put my daughter to bed at 9. So,
absolutely. But
which is 10 your time.
So let me ask you a question. So you're a big TV watcher, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So give me people love to have recommendations for shows and stuff you did like and didn't like, because I just watched a pile of something before I got on here and I wanted to kind of throw it by you. But
so I've got so much stuff on my queue because what I like to do is I like to wait till the season's over and then go back and watch it. So I'm not really watching anything live except for This Is Us. My wife and I watch This Is Us. Like, the episode will be tonight, so we'll watch it tomorrow. But
it's a big tearjerker, right? Love a lot of crying and things like that.
Have you not watched that show?
No.
Oh, you got to go back and watch it. It's so awesome.
I've heard everyone just like sobbing uncontrollably watching the show.
Well, but it's also happy too. It's a really, for a network TV show, it's really good. Other than that, like right now, what am I watching? I'm watching Lucifer on Netflix. I'm catching up on that. I've got about a season and a half left. I just finished Cobra Kai. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I have not seen the latest season of that. I'm all caught up. Other than that,
I was halfway through season 3, and then I kind of put it on the back burner because I keep going back to The Wire. I watch like a season at a time, so I think I'm through 4 seasons of The Wire now. I got 1 season left. So
let me ask you about that, because I think that people kill me for this take.
I have a feeling I'm going to agree with you.
It's a real one. I think it's an overrated show. I really do.
Well,
here's the reason I say it. So I love TV. I've watched TV since I was a kid, but like in this binge era, like all the hits, they for the most part hit with me. You're talking Sopranos, your Mad Men's, your Breaking Bads.
You're right in my sweet spot with those.
Right.
Yeah.
I was so excited to watch The Wire. I did not watch it when it aired, but it was kind of one of those things I was holding like a bottle like Johnny Walker Blue on a shelf. And I'm just like, one of these days I'm going to pop it open and I'm going to be, I couldn't wait to start. And then finally one day I was like, okay, I'm going to start it. It took me 5 years to watch the whole series. 5 years.
That's exactly what I'm going through right now.
And for me, it just didn't. If I have a series I love, I'm like banging them out. And I remember when I watched started Dexter for the first time. I
haven't watched that yet. That's right. Like it's on my short list. So
yeah. So the first 4 seasons are awesome. Like I was when my friend, my guy I was living with at the time, this is well before I was married, was we had all DVDs of everything. And so I just started Dexter, and it was just like ripping through seasons like in 2 nights. And The Wire, it never, like, it had its ups and it had its good points, but it just never got its hooks in me in terms of like a great series. And, I don't know, it just didn't work. So I think with so many people like, oh, it's so great. It's so great. I would ask them to kind of go back and rewatch. There's some dating to it, but you have to, I think with some old shows, you have to get over the flip phone thing and
that's
all that stuff.
Part of it. But I mean, I just watched The Shield, and The Shield is awesome. Like The Shield blows The Wire away.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, and so, I'd say the same thing about The Wire. Like it's fine. It's good. I mean, but it's not anything I'm ever going to watch again. And I mean, I may not even finish it. Like I will finish it, but I mean, I'm like, when is it going to get good? Like, I just like, when am I going to see the show that people are putting in their top 5 list? And I haven't seen it yet. It's like one of those Japanese matches, that everyone raves about. And then, but sometimes you watch it and when you get to like 25 minutes, it's like, oh, here it is. But I haven't got there yet. There's parts of it I really like. Like I'm in, I guess, season 4 now. And I like some of the stuff with the kids is interesting. And the old cop that used to be a cop and he's now a teacher. Like I'm really interested in that stuff. The female detective, it just bores me. The crooked guys, the cops, like they're, it's all tropes that you see in a million different shows. And there's no depth. Like even the main character, what's his name? McNulty. He's like, he's just like a bad stereotype of like every, half crooked cop you've ever seen on any TV show, like NYPD Blue blows that away. And I wouldn't even put that in my top 20, but it's a way better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the best show that I've seen like recently is probably Cobra Kai, for as far as recent stuff. And This Is Us. Trying to think of any recent shows. Like, I mean, there's a ton of stuff on HBO that it's just sitting on my thing. The Judge, I got about 3 episodes in and I stopped. That's the one with, is that the name of the show with the guy, Walter Cranston? as the lead.
Bryan Cranston.
Bryan
Talking
Cranston,
about
yeah.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, yeah.
You sound like my wife. My wife.
Oh.
So I swear my wife needs to be on a charade show because it's so funny. She'll watch a lot of stuff with me, and she's kind of like half in and out, and she'll be like,
mixing up the actors' names with the
what's the name of the show? And I'm like, I just sit there and I kind of gaze. I'm like, okay, keep going. And she's like, the show with the guy from this and this and I immediately know within like 2 guesses like what she's talking about, but I wanted to keep going with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Your Honor. Okay. I got 3 episodes in, and my wife gave up. Like, she said, I'm done with this. You can keep watching if you want.
Show.
Yeah, I liked it too.
I like that one a lot.
Because she didn't want to watch it. I mean, I'm gonna finish it. It's just I haven't got there yet. There was a show, but what did you watch that you said like the pilot?
Well, so a couple things we're watching now. The Peacemaker on HBO Max with John Cena.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that.
It's so funny.
Okay.
It's so good.
I loved his character in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, so it's basically it's a spinoff of that. It was I didn't have like big expectations because I think DC has kind of really screwed up how they've done their movies compared to Marvel and everything. But it's so good. It's so raunchy. It's like our comedy.
Oh, cool. Raunchy, douchebag violent, Captain America basically is what he is, right?
Yeah, it's I'm just thinking back. So they dropped 3 episodes as part of the premiere. And I mean references to sex vampires.
Oh wow!
I mean it's like it would just watch them. It sounds like a movie poster, but it's a John Cena that you've never seen before. I mean, other than in Suicide Squad, it's that turned up to 11.
But I imagine, it's from what you're describing, you just got a taste.
Yeah, so to a taste, yeah. And so the pilot I just watched was Yellow Jackets on Showtime.
Yeah. I saw that. I was looking at that and I was intrigued. I haven't put it on my watch list yet, but was it any good?
Yeah, it's the first episode is really intriguing. It's okay. And again, I don't know. I know a little bit about the series, but I have not jumped that far ahead because I don't want to potentially get spoiled. But yeah, essentially, it's a group of soccer players. It's based on it's not like a true story, but like group of soccer players get stranded in Colorado and are there for 19 months, and then it kind of jumps ahead to what their adult lives are, and it's just kind of just a hybrid of just chaos and craziness from everything I saw in this first episode. So it's I'm into it. It's good.
Yeah. I saw that and it kind of to me looked like another Euphoria, but I from what you're describing, that's not at all what it is. So that one disturbed me.
Yeah. For some reason I don't see it as a Euphoria. Well, I've never seen it myself, but to me it seems like it'd be like more of a teen audience. But no,
it's you watch it. Yeah, I did. I haven't decided whether I'm going to watch the second season yet. I don't even know why I started watching it, but then like when I was watching, I was just like I was horrified, but I couldn't take my eyes off it because it was like I had daughters that were the same age as those characters, and I'm like, is this what they're actually going through in their real lives? And then I've talked to some people that no, that's very, very overly dramatized. So don't worry, your daughters aren't going through that stuff. But I hope they're right because when I watched Degrassi, which that was more like what my kids were probably going through at the time.
Degrassi, that's big with you Canadians. Degrassi, yeah. They're doing a
reboot. Yeah, on HBO, a reboot. Yeah, the other one that fairly recent that I watched. I don't know. Did you watch The Last Man on FX?
Why The Last Man?
Yeah.
Yes. It broke my heart of how much I didn't like it.
Oh, okay. Because it was based on a comic book, right?
With a graphic novel series, a comic book series, graphic. It was. I love that series. I used to be a real big comic guy, and I read that whole series, and I was like, it had been in production hell for years, and they finally. And FX is, I think, the most underrated network out there right now. Yeah. It is.
I mean, the next bad series I watch on there will be the first.
Yeah, it's so good, so good. So, once I learned, okay, FX is doing Wild Last Man, like, there's no way it's going to be bad. There's no way, and it focused too much on, not enough on Yorick, the main character, and too much on all this like political BS on the outside. It's just like it's just a drag. And I guess reading about the series, they'd had a bunch of showrunner changes. There was a lot of issues due to COVID when it came to production, things like that. It was just kind of a cursed production. It broke my heart because there's a great,
do you know if it's coming back?
No, well, no, FX canceled it. I think it's a question of whether or not another network wants to pick it up. There's always some issues there because in order to pick it up, they also, if say Netflix was interested in doing it, right, they would have to get the rights to season 1 because they're not just going to start with season 2. You know what I mean? They probably wouldn't do a hard reboot. Yeah. So it's probably pretty doubtful, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah,
I wasn't familiar at all with it. So, I mean, what I saw on the screen, I was happy with. I imagine though, from what you're describing, that I probably wouldn't have been. For me, it was fine. You know, it was kind of like the Watchmen in a way where like I had no idea of any of the backstory, and I heard a lot of people not liking the Watchmen. And for me, it took me a few episodes to get into it, but by the end of it, I was like really sad that it was over. And I don't think that one's coming back either because I was really getting into it at the end.
You know, the movie. Yeah, so the movie initially was not good, and then the series was that was one of the best series of that whole year.
Okay,
so
there you
good.
go. Okay, so the series was good.
Yeah, and think of how sad it was. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Black Wall Street and the Tulsa massacre.
Yes,
and now which has come to such fruition afterwards. Like that was it's one of the reasons that some of those TV series are so important because they can educate you on things where you've just never heard this stuff before. Now that story is more out there and should be taught in schools because it's a huge story. So,
we have something similar in Canada. We have something similar in Canada with the,
no kidding.
Well, with the native graves of children at the residential schools all over the country where they're like digging up. Like
weren't they talking about they wanted to skip Canada Day last year because of that?
Yeah.
I believe it was like a big story, right?
Yeah. And and then we have a holiday now in the end of September. I don't remember when. End of September because it's right before Thanksgiving, and it's I think it's called Restoration Day, and it's basically just I guess it's kind of like our version of Juneteenth, like that sort of thing, like where and I have like I'm mixed race, like so I've got native blood. So I, it's a little close to home, especially with my daughters. Like their birth dad was native, so they're even more. And so that kind of stuff, it was just ignored. And this isn't even that long ago. Like your Black Wall Street was like 1918 or no 1932 maybe, something like that.
I feel like 29 sticks out.
Okay,
I can't remember.
But ours was like as late as the 80s. This was going on.
Oh, wow.
Like there were kids in residential schools, and these are like kids that are taken out of their homes and they're sent to these schools to basically get their native culture stripped from them and their Catholic schools, and to teach them, the right way. And then the kids that weren't getting it, they beat them and they starved them. And then if they died, they just put them in an unmarked grave in the back of the school.
It's crazy, like to think of like,
and I mean, we're talking 40 years ago.
And like even in any culture, it's hard for me to like.
It's genocide.
How's a human being look at another human being like that? That's okay. Like it's just I don't get it. I don't get.
And then the worst part of it is these families that had their kids stripped from them. There's a lot of alcoholism in the native culture, like in the native population in Canada, and they've got a bad reputation, as opposed to like I think the reputation for native people is a lot better in the States because they're successful, and they have casinos, and they own land and stuff like that.
Honestly, I wouldn't say it's not. It's a lot of it's the same. It's this assumption of I wouldn't say it's any better.
Okay.
It's just it's old.
But in
this
case,
and things like that. Yeah.
The alcoholism though is as a result of having your kids taken away from you. So now you've got these kids that, were just ripped from their families, and they never, you don't know where they are. You never see them again. You imagine like a teenage kid being ripped away from their family and they're just gone. Like they never come back. Yeah. So, are they dead? Are they living with another family or, whatever? And so, and then all of a sudden they develop alcoholism, imagine. Okay. So you know what, now end on that somber note, but now I probably do have to go, but I would definitely want to have you on again because I want to talk more TV with you, and we need to get into music. And I know you're a big music guy too. So I'd love to pick your brain about that at some point in the future. So
so
Josh, thank you very much. I hope people enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed doing it. And for Josh, I'm Grampa Dez, and this has been Cup of Joe with Grandpa.